Ears just popped. Hi everyone, it is 1 o'clock Eastern Time in Ohio. I'm QFom Gray. This is QTalk Live, and we are about to start week 4 of live videos. And gosh, I never thought I'd make it here, but here we are. I'm happy, excited that this is all going fairly smoothly. I think smoothly on your end more so than on my end, but we've been working it and we're getting there. And as much as I think I'm ahead, sometimes I think I'm behind. But anyway, so this week we're definitely on top of it, and we are just about ready for next week with a couple projects already lining up for to go. So this week, just as a recap, today we're doing the spring ring. There we are. And let's see if you can see that better. Andy named the ring. He looked at it and goes, "Oh, it looks like a spring." And went, "Perfect! It's a spring ring." So that's what we're doing. And this is part of the minimal metal series of lives because I decided that it should be Minimal Metal Monday because it's an extension of the book. All the projects on Mondays will be all the different materials that you find in the book. And it's all about being able to make projects from very simple supplies, and the diversity of projects is what you can do instead of being one note. That's what I was hoping to accomplish with all of this. So that's the ring for today. On Wednesday, we are going to do polishing and finishing techniques, and then on Friday, we're doing flower power. So you can join me for that. We are currently officially out of kits, but you can definitely follow along and get the instruction sheet if you want to. Okay. Today for the project, you will need the following items. You need a ring mandrel, a leather mallet, ring sizers, maybe if you don't know your own size or you're making it for somebody else. You'll need some of that. A bench block is important, always important. Some nice cutters. Cutters are great if they're flush. That makes life a lot easier. Something a little more heavy duty for this project because we are using 16 gauge wire. File is good. This is a maybe. It's a jeweler saw. That's maybe, maybe not. A vise, maybe, maybe not. That's sort of up to two. We'll discuss that when we discuss sizing. A wood wedge, that's also a maybe. A ruler is a maybe. And a ring clamp is optional. Materials today is very, very simple. You need some sandpaper. 400 is nice to start with. A Sharpie. I think I mentioned a ruler already. Some solder. 16 gauge wire. Any metal that you want, whether it's copper, brass, silver. I prefer on rings. Try not to do fine silver because it's a little bit soft. Okay, and your wire should always be raw, not plated, because plated is just a mess and we don't want to go there. Solder setup is important for this, of course, because we're going to be soldering. So that said, a couple announcements is yes, I did sign up for Twitch. The handle is going to be QFomGray, all one word, and you can actually watch Twitch now. I'm simulcasting. I know it's a big word for me, but I'm simulcasting and just to see what would happen. So, apparently Twitch is all about followers also and to get points. I haven't quite figured out the point thing yet, but there's these kinds of points that you can get and whatnot. So do me a favor and heart me, follow me or something. It is a free account. You don't even need an account to watch. It's a lot like YouTube, but signing up is really easy, and hearting me would be really, really helpful. So if Facebook isn't working for you, from what I understand, we sort of tested the system yesterday, and everybody who was on reported that through Twitch it was a lot clearer. So I know right now I'm already looking at myself going, I'm a little fuzzy. Let's see if it, yeah. So anyway, so it's a lot clearer on Twitch. I'm not sure why, but we'll see. And then I also heard that there's software that you can use that will take Twitch and push it right to Facebook, so that those people who aren't on Twitch that you didn't want to switch over will still continue to do this, but we'll figure out how to make it stream all together and make it all work. And that's twitch.tv. Okay, so it's not a .com, it's a .tv. It's very simple. If you're an Amazon Prime, I haven't figured out the relationship. It is an Amazon product at this point, and you have a free subscription on Amazon Prime. Again, not completely clear about the relationship, so if you actually understand it, can you let me know? Because I'm having a hard time understanding it, but I'll get there. Okay, see, the other piece of news is Zoom. We have tested Zoom, and Zoom is working. So probably here, not this week, but I'm aiming for next Friday being the first Zoom session, and I'm changing up the format a little bit. That will be announced later this week. I'm working on the project now and trying to figure out what project I want to do for the first Zoom project. If you have any requests, do put it out there. You know, if there's something you've always wanted to make, but not current projects. I'm trying to do new. Let me know and make the suggestions. Okay. Okay, so the projects, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera at this point, and we're going to start making rings. The ring is made up of 7 rings stacked and soldered together. There we are. And so you can see here, oops, it's up to you how wide you want to go. Okay, so you can do this 3 rings. I would definitely do at least 3 or 5 or 7. And you know, the more rings you make, of course, the harder the sort of gets. But the key here with a wide band is the wider you go, the larger you have to go with the ring. And I'll explain. So when you are sizing this, okay, so if you look here, your size is really the middle. Okay, it is not the top or the bottom. So my 7 is here, my 8 is down here. So the middle is going to be just below 7.5. So this is like a 7 3/4 size ring. You see? So if you obviously if you make it smaller and just do 3 bands instead of 7, this is going to be more like a 6.5. I'm sorry, a 7.5 and not a 7 3/4. You get it? Okay, so that's something that you need to keep in mind. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is how you're going to make this gap. Okay, there is a gap here. That's part of the design. You don't have to make this gap, but it's just, again, it's just part of the design. You can just make it solid all the way through and then put some granules on top. That's up to you. Okay, but depending on how you decide to cut this gap will determine the size of the ring. Okay, so you can make this ring exact to size and cut away the gap. Does that make sense? If you do that, then it will be exact to size. Again, if you are a size 6 and you're doing 7 rings, you need to size up at least 3/4 to 1 size up. So your final size will be a 6, but when you're making the individual rings, you're going to make it at approximately, you know, 6.5, 6 3/4. Okay, at which then you'll cut that gap out. Okay. The other way you can do this is to make this ring smaller, and you start off at like a 5 if you're going for a 6. You start off at a 5, you make all your rings in a 5, and then you cut, you make the cut, and you spread it apart. You stretch the rings out to create your gap. Because you're stretching the ring out, that's why you have to size down and start small. Hopefully that makes sense. I did explain that. I think I explained that a heck of a lot better in my instruction sheet. By the way, the instruction sheet, the link is on the description of this live, along with all the other tools that you're going to need for this project. The links are there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a size 6. I'm starting with a size 6 ring, okay, and then it'll stretch out and become close to a 7. All right, so I'm just going to take this mandrel and we're going to wrap this around. And I always start small. So I'm actually starting at like 4 or 5. Let's move that aside. Okay. I'm starting at like a 4 or 5 and I'm just going to churn it several times. I've already made 4 rings, 5 rings sitting in the pickle right now. So I'm going to make a few extra here. Okay. So I'm just wrapping around and pushing it down. Now I started, like I said, about a 4 or 5 right in there, and I'm going to push it down. And see, by starting small and pushing it down to the size I want, it is conforming to the mandrel. Okay, so there, see, it's really tight down here around the size 6. Push that in, and then I'm going to snip it. Just keep checking my size here. Okay, so I'm going to snip it right where the 2 wires come together. So that's 1. And because this is conical, I always take it out and then I do the next one. I don't just snip all the way up because the ones on top are smaller than the ones on the bottom. Okay, so again, keep losing my size here. Snip. And you see, just keep pushing it down to size, but still making sure that I am nice and snug up against the mandrel. Okay, checking for size, just double checking, make sure that's correct. Yep, that's a 6. And I'm going to double check these and trim as necessary. If you've made it too small, perhaps you should start practicing with copper instead of silver. That way you won't be wasting much. Okay, so now I'm looking at the ends of the wire, and there's always a bevel, one beveled end. Even though I'm using flush cutters, one end will be beveled. So I'm taking that bevel off and making them nice and flush. Okay, so now I'm looking at the rings like a jump ring, and I'm just going to move it just like a jump ring towards itself to make for a tight fit. If you don't have a great flush cutter, then you're going to need to take out your file, and you want to go ahead and file those ends down. If there's burrs in there, you want to take that off, or if you have that beveled edge that you can't seem to get with a regular cutter. So just like so. That's where these great Lindstrom flush cutters come into play. They're really nice to have. It saves so much time to have a nice cutter. So, okay. If there is a pitch in the ring, I don't have one in any of these, but if there is, easiest way to get rid of it is to take out a pair of chain nose pliers. I'm using parallel chain nose here because I like my parallel pliers, and I'm going to put it right inside and I'm going to squeeze. Okay, that brings the ends down like so. Okay, I do not make a D out of my rings. I know that is a technique that's taught by a lot of people, but I don't do it that way because it stresses the joint. I make a very, very slight, shall we say, D. Can you see that? Okay, so if you're looking for the parallel pliers, they are on the site. Actually, so hold on. I don't know if you can see that. There's a slight flat edge on that. And that's the slight D I'm talking about. You know, some people make a very severe D. Totally not recommended because you're going to have to bend that back round, which creates stress on the joint. So a very small one, that's okay. All right. So you want to make sure that everybody is nice and even around the sides, along the top, okay, for soldering. All right, going to take out the board and we're going to apply some solder on here. If you're doing silver, you're going to start with hard solder. And here I'm just going to use some copper solder. Remember, copper solder self-levels, so we don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to put a dab on the inside of the ring. The question always is, do you put the solder on the inside or on the outside? It's somewhat argumentative. Some people would argue that by putting it on the inside, you don't see it. While other people would argue that if you put it on the outside, it's easier to clean. So I say it is up to you. Okay? Set that aside, and we are going to torch. If it's silver, you want to heat the whole thing just gently like so, and then hit the joint. Just back and forth between the joint, watch the solder flow. If it's copper, you can just hold it right at the joint until the solder flows all the way through. I like to production line these because it helps me stay symmetrical. Remember, copper solder needs a second to set, so don't grab that too quickly. I always tell people, just take a deep breath. It just takes a little moment there. My quench bowl is on the side. Done. Okay, so I'm going to put these in with the other rings that are in the pickle pot next to the pot. I use hot pickle because it works a lot faster. Yes, you may use cold pickle, but it just takes a lot more time for it to work. Okay, personally, I like instant gratification and I like things to just happen. All right, make sure you have clean water to rinse off all your pieces coming out of the pickle. That's always a good thing. And I'm going to grab my pieces here. Okay. I always keep a rag just for drying off and things like that. Okay, so you see all my rings, and then I'm going to check and make sure that they're round, and if they're not, I'm just going to put it right back into the mandrel. Like these ones I just made are not exactly round, because remember I gave them a bit of a flat edge. I'm going to check here. Okay, so back into the mandrel and tap it. I like to look, let's see if I can make that happen. So I like to look right down into my ring and see where the wobbles are, and I work that out. Okay, make sure they're all the same. So someone just asked if you can use the same bowl for quenching and cleaning after the pickle. I do. I know that some people don't like that, and I can see the argument against that, but I do, always have. That's the lazy technician in me, but then that's also I don't have that much of a footprint to work with, so you know, I always try to save space. Here, I'm going to push this aside, and you'll see the ring needs to be flat to the surface of the bench block. So some of these wobble. I don't know if you can see that, but they wobble. Okay, so just put on a bench block and hit it like so. There we go. And do it to all of them. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 8 rings. Got a little ambitious there. But heck, making a couple extra rings are always a good thing, because then if one of these is too small or too big, you can just sort of eliminate it, right? Okay, let's make sure these are round. Just checking, checking, checking. And, oops, this one is not round. So just keep checking your rings, and then we're going to stack these up. So here we go. And I just want to see if all these rings are the same size. And I'm going to choose one because I really don't want 8. I like my odd numbers. I think we all know all about those odd numbers. It always seems to work better. Wow, I did pretty good. Okay, I'm going to take you out. All right, so now we're going to solder these pieces together. Okay, so you're going to put one down. You're going to put one down, and then we're going to solder them. Place solder on there. So you're going to use, if you're doing silver, you're going to go to medium solder at this point. For the copper, I'm just going to keep moving. What am I soldering on? I am soldering on a solderite board, or a soldering board. Okay. Actually, I'm going to move this to the honeycomb, because this is going to be much more helpful in the honeycomb. And you'll see that here in a second. I'm also on the Swivel Vice, which is going to be really helpful here in a second. Alright, so I'm going to put solder on, like, 6 different spots about there. And I'll show it to you in a second. And this is going to take a minute to do. You see? Okay. So then the first one got nothing. This one got solder, and I'm going to flip it right over and place it right on top. Okay, just like so, and work it right back. I forgot to mention a step here. I totally skipped a step. So after you have made your rings round and whatnot, make sure that you sand any joints. So if any of your joints are sort of funky, then go ahead and sand that down now. It's much better to sand them now than it is when they're all soldered together. It's easier to get to these joints, so make them all very nice. Okay, I'm using 400 sandpaper to start off with, and then go to your 500 and then 600 if you're looking for a high polish. Okay, so we're going to repeat this 6 more times. Sorry, but and I'm just using a pin to apply the solder, and then flip it over and put it on the next one, and keep doing that all around. So I was very productive this past weekend. If you're following me on QTalk, you'll see I made a tool caddy out of PVC pipe. Very proud of myself. It's been working okay. I wish my Lazy Susan was spinning a little bit better, but so far so good. I might have to take it apart and add more lubricant to that Lazy Susan, but oh well, that's what you get for using something that's been sitting around for a while. So if you have a Lazy Susan that's not in use at home, it's really great for the tools. You can just spin it around. Some people say it takes too much of a footprint, but I like it. I actually have 2 sitting over here. Alright, so a couple more. Almost there. To go. So I've already come up with next Wednesday's demo day. I think we're going to do a day on riveting. It'll be fun. Just a bit of a departure from all this soldering that we've been doing, some cold connection. It'll go back to the first book. Alright, so we're on the last one. I know it is not stacked evenly. I'm sure you can see that, but we're going to fix that. just a second here. I'm being arbitrary about where the joints are. So, so funny. You're asking the question just as I was already saying it. No, I'm not lining up my joints. I'm being arbitrary about where the joints are. But I guess you could be a little bit more aware of that and put them all together. But I feel like if you do that, well, let me think about this for a second. If you put all the joints on one spot, right, and you're using the technique of cutting away your gap, you could cut that joint away, which is nice, but if you're doing it the other way, it's not really going to matter. Okay, so now that it's on here, I'm going to find something flat, like my ruler here, and push all the rings together and try to make them more cylindrical and not staggered. Okay, whatever tool I have sitting around. I'm going from the inside also to ensure that I'm getting all the rings to come together. There we are. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Being a little inattentive about it, even though it's a demo. Alright, so why am I putting it on the honeycomb block? Because I don't want any of these to fall over. I'm going to pin it into place. Okay, like so. And I'm going to put it in 4 spots. Alright, just like so. Set everything aside. Oops. Okay, so you want to make sure you heat everything, not just the outside, but on the inside also, to ensure that the solder flows everywhere. So remember, we're using medium solder at this point. We started with hard solder on the joints. Okay, so there it is, and it's nice to have this little swivel just to keep going all the way around, and then I'm going to slow down. You don't want to be moving too fast, okay? Make sure that everything goes around. And I'm watching that the solder flows all the way around. I think I got most of it. Yay. Alright, be very careful, the pins are hot. I have a tendency to also throw the pins right into my quench water just to ensure that I don't pick up a hot pin. The boards are going to be hot, don't go touching those either. Quench, and voila. Nice. I'm going to throw that into the pickle. While it's pickling, we're going to make a granule. I'm just going to use some scrap here because I can. I'm going to set that aside. So if you are interested in the Swivel Vice, just remember it does not come with a solder board, okay? You have to order that separately. Okay. I'm sorry, not the Swivel Vice, the rotating soldering station. Andy, of course, is with me today in my ear telling me what everyone is saying because I can't get to my screen to talk to you, nor my keyboard. So the question is, will the solder adhere to the pins? You know, I don't have that problem so much. It only happens every so often, but I put it right up to it and it seems to fall away anyway because remember, it's steel, okay? So I just have a pile of scrap silver here, and I'm just going to make a granule for myself. And you can make more than one if you want. It's just a soldering challenge, right? So just be careful of that. I'm going to grab that right before it cools completely so it doesn't stick to my board. And there we are. I'm going to put that into the pickle too, and then I'm going to switch out. So next up, we're going to have to cut this gap, Okay. So I'm going to pull out my vise, move this, and I will need to also move, give me a second, I will also need to move the camera. Okay, so let's see how the pickling is doing. We're pretty good. And pull out my granule too. Is that one ready? Granule not ready. It's going back in. All right. So here we have the soldered rings. I'm going to show everybody on Twitch also. And then you want to make sure that you're still round. I'm going to throw it back into the mandrel just a little bit. Make sure we're doing okay here. It was leaning over a little bit. I'm just going to make it back. It's a little softer working with copper now that I've torched on it. The copper's gotten a little soft on me. Didn't have as much of a problem with the silver. Okay, so I started with 6, right? And this ring is actually right down to 6 1/4. Okay, so it did go down by 3/4 of a size, but it's going to go back up once I stretch this, once I cut this open. So 2 approaches again here. If you have a ring clamp, you can use a ring clamp if it is wide enough, if it opens wide enough for your ring to hold. I prefer to use a vise. This is much easier for me. Okay, then I'm going to put this right back in, clamp it really well, take out a Sharpie, take out a ruler. You can make a straight line, you can make a line in a diagonal. That design is up to you. So I'm just going to do a diagonal. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Let's see if we can switch that up on your Twitch there. Okay, hoping that works. So Twitch for me is still a process, doing it sort of blind here. Ooh, and now somebody's talking to me on my other phone. Hold on. And it looks like I ended my live on Twitch. No idea what just happened. Hold on. Watch. Stream. Okay. Something just happened. Sorry. I think I just ended it when I touched it. Whoops. Okay. Well, like I said, it's a process. All right, so we have our line here, and we have our saw. If you want to lubricate that saw blade, you can with some cut lube, and of course my cut lube has walked away. So it's argumentative whether or not you need cut lube. Typically I do. Like I said, it sort of walked away to the other side of the room. Sorry. And some people say you don't need it, but I actually think it's much easier. So right on that line, I am going to saw, just like so. Easy, long strokes. Don't force it. Just hear that sound. It's a very easy sound. Sorry, Andy, I don't understand you. So if you're trying to look for me on Twitch, it is my name in full. It's QFomGray. Okay. So now I'm going to pull the ring apart a little bit just to pull out my saw and not break my saw blade. All right. So we have this great cut. I have to say I'm pleased with myself. You see that? Okay. So we're going to pull that out just a little bit. Move this back over. And I'm just going to put it right back into the ring mandrel. All right. And shape it a little bit. So as you can see, I have my gap. I always flip my ring back and forth to ensure that I'm not creating a cone. All right, there it is. These edges here are going to be really sharp. You're going to want to take out your file and file it. Okay, and I like to file over the top also to get rid of any of those sharp edges. The top of the edge is what I'm doing at a slight angle. Do you see that? And then I also want to pull out a small like needle nose of some sort. Let's see what I have here. Yep. I love barrette files because it's only a file on one side and not the other, so I won't have any fear of damaging where other places. And I'm going to do a slight angle also from underneath. Okay. Like so. And make sure you do all those edges. Because I'll tell you, when I made the first ring, well, you know, no one's wearing my rings, right? Andy tried it on and said, "Ooh, it's sharp." Like, okay. I'll go back and redo that. So make sure you do all the edges, not just the ones on top, because when you wear it, you'll feel it on the inside here. Okay? So sand those edges, file those edges, and then take out your sandpaper, and I would run my sandpaper inside also, just to reduce any sharp edges, especially the top and bottom ones here. They do need a little bit of extra love. Okay, just like so. Just to nip off that edge. And yes, I have a tendency to file in both directions. We'll have to argue about that another day. It works for me. And okay. There. All right. So we're nice and round, we're nice and even. It's up by a little bit more than a half size. I'm going to go get my granule out of the pickle. It's nice and pretty. Okay. I do know that Twitch is off. Wait, hold on. Give me a second here. Let's see if I can get it back on. Remember, I'm still new at this. How do you do this? Chat. I don't want to do the dashboard. Oh, wait. Go live. There we are. Okay. Click the button. It doesn't want to do it. Huh. I don't know what happened there. It died. I'm clicking go live and it just does a red thing at me. Okay, I give. We'll have to test it some more on Wednesday or tomorrow. If you're around, check in, see what I'm up to. But anyway, so now I'm gonna grab my my pumice and I'm gonna move this camera again. Okay, and we're gonna raise this. So I've been working with a couple other instructors. We are almost ready to post metal immersion in January for the Philly area. Pretty excited about that. Almost ready to announce it, but very close that I share that since we have been working through the weekend on that. So here I have my granule, and then I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the bottom of it, making sure that the solder touches. That's a lot of solder. Ugh. Okay, touches both sides of the ring. Like so. Why am I using pumice? Because it's easy. to get my piece into place. Okay, and that's why I'm using the pumice. It just seems to hold it really nice, and I don't have to think about too much to get it there. Always keep your fire tweezers in hand should this move. Okay, so we're going to heat this just right there. Make sure you heat around, get everybody nice and hot. You should be using easy solder at this point if you are using silver. Yep, I think I got it. Okay. Give it a second to think about it because remember we're using copper solder. It just wants a minute. Yep. Quench that. Check your connection. Check my connection. Okay. I think you can see that. Ah! Ooh. Don't grab a steel bowl after you've been torching on it. And that went into the pickle. You can oxidize this or not. This ring was not oxidized at all. I like most of my silver just high polished or matte really. I don't necessarily like it oxidized. So, but you can oxidize it with liver sulfur or black max, whatever. Or you can just steel brush it after it comes out of the pickle. You can use steel wool also. All right. So regarding polishing, we're going to discuss that on Wednesday. I'm going to do a whole thing on Wednesday about different ways to polish, when and why, and all that good stuff. Because I think it's worthy of a discussion. I've also heard a lot of times that in classes people don't give enough time or dedicate enough time for finishing and polishing. And I know that I'm guilty of that for sure, especially in a 3-hour class. I'm rushed to get you in, do it, and send you home to do all the finishing. So let's take some time to do that on Wednesday. So remember, all the links are here on the description already. I will have them available as soon as we're done here. Also, for those of you who are new, there is lag, a lot of lag. So don't get too frustrated. And your questions are being fielded out by Andy in another room and talking to me in, hold on, in my ear. Okay, so here we are, and it's a done deal. Let's see if we're gonna focus. Yeah, not wanting to focus. Okay, too close. Sorry. All right, so brass brush it for now, steel wool it for now, and let's come back on Wednesday and talk a bit about finishing and polishing. I'm going to use a flex shaft and bits and pieces that goes into the flex shaft and tumbling and all that good stuff. For now, we're going to keep it short. I want to thank everybody so much for being here today again and joining me in this journey. It's been really cool. If you could help out by sharing these posts, and if you want to contribute, there will be a link up for you to buy the instruction sheets and whatnot. Okay, that's one way to contribute, or just keep sharing these videos. Oh, can you stretch this ring? I'm sorry, before I go. You can stretch it a little bit, not a ton, because remember, you've got really small solder joints right here on that ball. And you could do extra balls if you want to. You can stretch it a little bit, so not too much, okay? So anyway, sizing is there on the instruction sheet. The link is there for the instruction sheet also if you're looking for the instruction sheet. Other than that, I will see everybody on Wednesday, and I'll post the links ASAP, and I'm going to figure out Twitch ASAP too. Thanks for going there. I'll see you on Wednesday, 1 o'clock.